In a world where businesses everywhere are trying to make print-on-demand sales, one podcast goes above and beyond every week to bring the most POD-specific information there is, all to help save the day, every day. Don't succumb to the enemies of your print-on-demand business. Sign up today for the Print On Demand Cast VIP email at printondemandcast.com/VIP. This time, it's for real.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print On Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print-on-demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success, and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 178 of the Print On Demand Cast. My name's Travis. I'm your host today. Today is a little bit different than perhaps what you've seen before. This is actually a Print On Demand Cast Essentials episode. What is Essentials? Well, we're going to get into that. First and foremost, you might notice that I'm solo today. Josiah is not with me, and that's part of what the Essentials episodes are going to be about. And so let's just get into it. Let's just talk about the new format. This isn't a total new format. Josiah will still, be joining me on a lot of shows, but this particular series of episodes will be shorter typically, and there's likely only going to be one host. There may be a time when Josiah is hosting an Essentials episode. For the most part, it'll probably be me, but that's just kind of the way this format is going to work. Eventually, we may make this into a second weekly show along with some other formats that we're kind of talking about and exploring. But that's what this is. So this is the first official episode of the Print On Demand Cast Essentials. However, it was kind of done. We'd been talking about it for a while, but we just couldn't get together, and so it kind of forced the issue on us. So Josiah couldn't basically hang out as long as he needed to for us to record the show. So we just said, let's just go ahead and kickstart this thing. Normally, it won't take the place of a normal episode. It would probably be like a bonus episode or an extra episode. All of that to say, glad you're here, and we're glad we're kind of kicking this off. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, again, these are going to be shorter episodes. So I thought it would be really cool to kind of just take another pass at an idea, like a print on demand 101 before you sell anything. And we've talked about this on the past. In fact, on the front page of our website at printondemandcast.com, there's a whole series, there's 1 through 5. And I think I'm going to go through those and just kind of reiterate those, maybe in a shorter format in these essential episodes. And I just think it's important to get that information out, and maybe it doesn't need to be an hour long. So that's kind of what these are, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. However, it would not be the Print On Demand Cast if we did not give you a weekly dad joke. So here we go.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right. So recently my home was actually invaded by mosquitoes. Now you might find that hard to believe because I live in Colorado and it was like -4 degrees the other day. But let's suspend disbelief for the moment for this dad joke. So yes, my home was invaded by mosquitoes and I had no idea what to do. Luckily, I called 911 and I'm really glad I did, because they actually sent in, the SWAT team. Boom. I didn't have I didn't have it up. Yeah, I didn't have the rim shot right there to play. So sorry. But yeah, share that around your water cooler. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Okay. That's the weekly dad joke. Got all of that out of the way. Let's jump into Print on Demand 101 before you sell anything. So what are we talking about here? because a lot of you have already started your shops. You're already kind of along that path. However, there are some people that are kind of in that curious category that we talked about in episode 172, when we talked about the print on demand journey. And there's the curious is kind of the I'm dipping my toe in the water, or I haven't even dipped my toe in the water. I'm just curious about this thing. I want to understand it. So this would be, again, also last week we talked about the print on demand success pyramid, and that bottom line right there is called organization. And so a lot of these things are going to kind of fit into that category of organization, but I'm not going to belabor it too much. So let's just jump into it. The first thing that we want to talk about when we talk about before you sell anything, what do you want to do? It's not so much things to do, it's actually things to consider. And so I think one of the most important things that you can do and spend your time on when you're first starting to be curious about print on demand is define or figure out what your why is. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. And as a matter of fact, we had a whole episode in episode 53, if you want to go back to that. And we talked about what is your why. And so kind of got this idea from a guy named Simon Sinek, who has an incredible TED Talk on YouTube called What's Your Why? And if you want to, take 20 minutes and go watch that, it'll really, really hammer this point home. But what he said in that TED Talk was that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I thought that was so intriguing and incredible. And I have a friend who actually has also been on the podcast. I don't remember specifically what episode he was on. His name's Luke Humbrecht. And he does a thing called Story Brand, which helps people market their brands with stories. And he is a very, big advocate of what is your why, and things like your what's the word? Your core messaging, your kind of your value statements, those types of things, like, why are you doing this? And when I was talking to him about, well, I just do print on demand, I just, sell coffee mugs and t-shirts and, silly things like that. And one of the things that he helped me understand was that every time someone opens up a package from a print on demand seller, it's a gift. It's, it's something that means something to somebody. There is a inevitable joy that comes with that, or laughter, or, some type of like, oh, you get me, you understand me. And so we were able to take that and kind of create some of our marketing, our internal, really, it's really internal. It's not marketing. For some of our employees and some of our VAs, just talking about how, like, this is why we do this. And it really changed my thought process on why we're in the print on demand game. And it's actually kind of fun now when I see, this hilarious statement on a coffee mug or whatever. And I know that someone's going to see that and they're going to freaking laugh, and that brings me, it not only brings me joy, but it also gives me purpose. It helps me keep going when it's hard, because I know that what I'm doing is not just, it's not just to make money. You know what I mean? There's actually something beyond that. Now, of course, I want to make money, and that is part of, my motivation for this. But I think thinking about what you're actually doing in a bigger picture will help you when you get down, when you're frustrated, when the sales aren't coming in the way you thought, when that customer complains about that product that they got, and you're like, what, really, again, or whatever. It can help you if you can have something like this and you understand, I'm doing this for more than just a side hustle, more than just making some money. Again, nothing wrong with having, that as one of your motivators. But I feel like when you're talking about finding out your why, it's smart and it's important to go a little bit deeper with that thought. It's not just about making money. It's about spreading joy. For me, it's about like touching as many people with laughter as possible, through our products. And so that can also motivate your employees. And you don't have to have a huge set of employees for this to make a difference. It could be one virtual assistant that, works in another country, or it could be your spouse or one of your kids, that's working with you. And it's like, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is important to me, and I want it to be important to us. And so as we're thinking about different things, we are thinking about how we affect the world. What is our why behind all of that? So I kind of belabored that a little bit, but check out episode 53 if you want. We go into a lot of that, and it's actually a really good episode. So the next thing, before you sell anything, less on the kind of, heady place and more on like the practical, what can you do? It's deciding upon like your formation for your business. So you've probably heard of a DBA, and a DBA just stands for doing business as, and that is basically an extension of you to the IRS and to the government. If you start a DBA, you are basically going to be taxed as if all of the money that comes in from that DBA is your personal income. So if you have a job and you bring it all in, all of that money is going to be taxed as your personal income. And the same thing with the DBA. Aside from, of course, your expenses, if you pay for your products that, from your company, of course, that's not going to be taxed because that comes off. Maybe you can deduct your internet if you're doing it all from home. Maybe there's we talked a little bit about this on deductions just a few weeks ago at the end of the year, but some of those expenses will obviously come off your taxes. But at the end of the day, when it's time to do your taxes, you're going to be charged or taxed at a personal income tax rate. So the other option that you have is to do what's called an S-Corp. And the S-Corp, again, I said this on our last episode, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not trying to give tax advice. I'm trying to just explain how I understand it, how it was explained to me. And so please do contact or talk to somebody that knows more than I do about taxes, preferably a CPA, somebody that's licensed to actually give you good advice. Don't take my advice for it. Talk to them. So an S-Corp, as I understand it, allows for you, it's becoming a separate entity. So it's not the same as you. It's actually, you're going to actually have to do taxes for your S-Corp at the end of the year. So yeah, it's going to cost more money because now you have to do your personal taxes and you have to do the S-Corp taxes. The cool thing about an S-Corp is that you can pay yourself from the S-Corp a salary and say, I want to pay myself, it's a side income. Maybe we made $20,000 or $50,000 at the end of the year. I want to pay myself what the IRS says a reasonable compensation. So let's say we made $50,000 and I'm going to pay myself $20,000 because I feel like it's a part-time thing. I did it on the side. I don't need to take a full-time income because maybe I have another job or maybe I don't, but who's to say it's really $50,000. That's kind of a part-time income. It's a great part-time income. In some cases, it could be a full-time income, but I'm going to take that $20,000 and that's the part that I'm going to pay personal income tax on. That other 30,000, I'm going to pay what's like a corporate rate, which is significantly less than what my personal income tax rate is. And so, and we're just pretending like it's 50,000 all profit after all of the expenses have been taken out and all of that. And so I'm taking 20% that I'm being taxed with my, 22% tax bracket or 25 or 32 or whatever they are, versus 10 to 12% of the corporate rate. So that's a lot. That's a lot of savings in just taxes. That more than pays for your, having to file an extra tax return for your S-Corp at the end of the year. So those are some ways that you can, you just need to decide that. And it's totally fine if you start as a DBA and then transition to an S-Corp once you're actually starting to make some money. But you need to decide that. You need to say, okay, this is my plan, and have that plan, because for an S-Corp, a lot of times they have like a 30-day window at the beginning of the year that you can apply to be an S-Corp. And so if you get to December and you're like, man, I really wish I would have done this back in January, well, you're going to have to wait, and you're going to be taxed at that, your personal income tax rate that year, most likely. And so you just need to have that in the back of your mind. Okay, in January, what am I doing? Now, there are some things that you can do, I believe, to transition to an S-Corp in the middle of the year in certain scenarios. So again, talk to your CPA, but for the most part, you have to do that in January. So consider that as you're moving forward. The next thing that you're going to want to do before you sell anything, in a perfect world, again, if you've done all this, we'll talk about that at the end. If you've already started selling, it's totally fine. But you're going to want to go to the Secretary of State in your state, and you're going to want to basically register as a business, as a trade name. For me in Colorado, I have a trade name, and then I also register, and I get a EIN, which is an employee identification number, which is kind of like a social security number for your business. It's a social security number. It's not really social security, but it's kind of like that. The government sees it that way. And so that's what you're filing taxes on at the end of the year. That's how they kind of track people who are employed by your business and all of that stuff. But what it also does, it also allows you to apply for your sales tax license, which is the next thing that you need to do. You get a sales tax license, and then you don't have to pay tax when you buy, say you're printing 100 shirts for somebody in your basement, and you can buy them without paying tax, and you can get an account at a Sanmar or an SNS Activewear, which you can't unless you are a business with a sales tax license. So you have to be an actual business, or otherwise you're going to have to pay, or you're going to have to buy them from other companies that don't give you as good of rates or as good of pricing. It's just not as good. It's not necessarily a wholesale rate from some of the other companies that you can buy it from. So you're leaving money on the table by not doing some of this. And if you're just completely outsourcing and you're not doing any, and you're like, Travis, I don't care about Sanmar or SNS Activewear, that's totally fine. You also can save on taxes from your Printifies and your Printfuls. And they have a whole nother system for doing that. And a lot of times only certain states will allow you to do it. And you have to fill out forms for all of that. But if you don't have a business and you don't have a sales tax license, it doesn't matter. You're going to pay tax in every state. So it makes sense to save that money and, keep it in your pocket than, pay sales tax and give it to the government. So those are some of the things that you need to do. So we talked about registering at the Secretary of State, getting an EIN, and then registering for those wholesale accounts where it makes sense. The other benefit to getting an EIN, and this is the next thing, is for your business banking account. I do not recommend that you do all of these, sign up for Etsy and Amazon and have it popped into your, paying out to your regular personal checking account. That's not the best idea here. First of all, it gets really difficult come tax time if you're trying to figure all this out and trying to say, well, yeah, that was a business expense. And, oh yeah, that was when I took my family out to dinner. And, it just gets very confusing. And the IRS, if they ever did audit you, it would be a real pain in the butt to try to figure out every single expense that's all in there. Instead, have a business banking account. Everything that goes into that account is for business. And so it's very simple. It's very streamlined, and it's simple. Everything that you make goes in there, and everything that you have as an expense or pay for comes out of there. And then when you make the transition from, the transfer for, $1,000 because you made a lot of money and you want to pay yourself, it shows up in both places as a draw. And then you can decide again at the end of the year, if you're an S-Corp, what the business paid you. You could put you on payroll, all of that stuff. Or if you're just a DBA, doesn't really matter all that much. You can take $1,000 out, but it came from that account and you have proof. And it's very easy if you ever did, God forbid, get audited. And it makes it super easy to then eventually transition to maybe an S-Corp because again, you have your own bank account, own set of books potentially by then. You don't necessarily need to start bookkeeping right away. I would quickly do it once you start making some good sales, but you get the idea. Having that separated is super, super important. It's going to make your life so much better. So those are, some of the things that I think need to happen before you even make a sale. If you're in that curious area and you're dipping your toe and you're trying to see if print on demand is for you, these are some of the things, some of the basic steps that I would recommend you take as you're getting, the other thing that it does for you. I mean, that sounds like a lot of work. And in some ways it is. It's a lot of, kind of details and, getting onto that. Doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it's not really difficult. You just got to kind of figure it out. And that seems insurmountable. But once you do that, it's going to motivate you to get out there and make this work. You're putting skin in the game. You're actually creating motivation for yourself because you're working so hard to get these foundations or this bottom of the pyramid, this organizational piece finished, so we can start moving on to the next piece. It'll motivate you. So highly recommended. So that being said, if you have already started, you've already connected your personal checking to Etsy. You have, you just started selling. You didn't even set up a DBA. You don't even know what an EIN is. I think it's very smart for you. If this is something that you want to continue to do, you're seeing some success. Maybe it's just a flash in the pan and you're just going to walk away from it. And that's fine. But if it's something that you really want to do, I would go ahead and start doing some of these different steps. I would decide, do I want to be a DBA or an S-Corp, and probably you're going to start out being a DBA, and that's fine. I would go and register with the Secretary of State. I'd get an EIN because you need an EIN to open a business checking account. So get that business checking account and then, do the hard work of saying, hey, Etsy, hey, Amazon, hey, wherever you're selling, Shopify, this is the new account I want you to deposit this in. And I recently did that with an Etsy account I had no issues with it at all. I showed that this is who I am. I did some verification process, and they switched the accounts over, no problem. So I wouldn't worry about it so much, but I think the sooner you can do that, the better. Just rip the Band-Aid off. You'll be glad you did. It's behind you now. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's cleaner, and it will serve you as you continue to scale. So if you've already done it, you've already jumped in, you've already kind of, not done some of the things we've been talking about. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. You can proactively fix some of these things. And I can tell you so many stories about people I've talked to who go back 2 or 3 years later and they realize, man, I wish I would have done this earlier. And it's so prevalent in this industry and in pretty much any business. It's smart to start now. When I talked about this in another podcast, but a lot of podcasts, back when I was a youth pastor, I went to this guy in Oklahoma, and he was a youth pastor and had a really successful ministry. And it was amazing. They were, having, hundreds and hundreds of kids come every single week. And the one thing that he said that stuck with me from my entire life, and including business, was build now for what you want it to be. And I say, build now for what you want your business to be. Make it scalable today. See where you want it to be, and then create the systems and the organization so that when you're there, you're not overwhelmed. Start today by organizing and getting these things done, because your future self will thank you. I guarantee it. Okay. So like I said, these are going to be a little bit shorter episodes, print on demand essentials. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope this helped. Please reach out to me and tell me what you think about this new format. Go to info@printondemandcast.com, and send me an email and say, hey, I really like that. Or, I really miss Josiah. I don't know. But yeah, let me know. So reach out and give me some feedback. The other thing that you heard at the beginning of the show was just an encouragement for you to sign up for our VIP email list. And I would highly recommend you do that. I send out, weekly emails that kind of encapsulate what we talked about and maybe share a little bit of extra things. And then there's a few things that you don't necessarily get in the show that you might get on the email list, including a bonus dad joke. Every single week in the email, I send out a bonus dad joke. And I know that probably is, the whole reason you'll sign up. However, the other reason you want to sign up is to get your hands on the annual design calendar that will help you organize how you want to batch your designs and what you want to be designing for today, so that when that event or that season or that holiday or whatever shows up down the road, you've got products already made for them. So it's just a simple PDF, but I still use it to this day. My virtual assistants all know where it is. They're designing, they're planning our listings by that design calendar. So we give you that in exchange for your email. And then, that's about it. So I think I'm going to log off at 25 minutes. Wow. 26 minutes. This is pretty amazing. I guess it's Josiah's fault that we're so long-winded. I'm just going to go ahead and go with that. Anyway, remember, Pod Pals, you guys are great. Life's too short for a bad design. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast. See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.